Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Whatever time of day it is, where you are, I say to you, good morning. My prayer today is that the Son of God, the Son of God, will arise in your life, that his glory will shine forth, and that you will be blessed, that your life will be transformed today in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Let me take this opportunity just to welcome you to our Bible study session. One more day, our God has kept us alive. And here we are in this time to share in his word. My name is Christopher Panther, and it is indeed my honor to be able to share with you in these sessions. I'm just excited. I guess it can be heard in my voice. I'm really excited because of the Lord Jesus Christ. I always look forward to these sessions. I never get tired of them. My only anxiety sometimes is if I am prepared to give the word of God as he has been delivering it to me. Am I doing the will of God? Am I delivering what he wants me to deliver? Outside of that, I am very happy to share with you each time we gather in this fashion. So I just want to welcome you again on behalf of the Lord Jesus Christ. I just want to welcome you also on behalf of my wife, who is always in the background helping to steer the ship and keep things going. So welcome, 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 everyone. Last time we took a little break from our Genesis series, and we looked at where the world is and the turmoil that is happening all around us. And indeed, we know that this is, it's just all around us in Jamaica, Cayman Islands, the United States, Canada, across Europe, wherever man lives on the face of the earth, we are in a time of turmoil. I don't want to go touch on what we discussed in that discussion. What I want to say is that you just take courage in knowing that God is in control of everything, right? It does not matter what is happening. We may not always see, we may not even agree with what he's doing, because I can tell you personally, if I'm to be very honest, sometimes I have to ask the Lord, what are you doing? Right? I don't understand this. And I'll tell him, I don't agree with it. But because I'm just human, right? So I'll be very honest and tell you that sometimes it is like that. But one thing I know, when the dust settles, when all is said and done, I know that God is in control. Amen. And so today we're going to be continuing our look at the book of Genesis, and what we have been learning from the life of Joseph in particular. Last time at looking at Genesis, we ended off pretty much at verses 7 and 8, where we said that verse 7 to me represents one of the most profound verses in the entire book of Genesis. All right. And to me, I refer to it as Joseph's purpose statement. And when we looked at what he was said in the context of where we are coming from, I put out the proposition that Joseph had an opportunity to go back to look for his father from the time he became governor of Egypt. He had the wherewithal, he had the means to go. But the reason why he did not go was because of the purpose for which God had him in Egypt. He took the time to prepare to make sure that when his brothers came, that the place was set for them and that all was well, so that the plan of God that God had promised from Abraham coming down would be fulfilled. And I said, boy, Joseph is just an extraordinary character in my book, right? You don't find men like him much anymore. So after we had gone now, we see here in verse 8 that Joseph told his brothers, so don't you worry. This is God. God has sent me to prepare a place for you, to make sure that some of you survive this famine, because it's going to be terrible. A lot of persons are going to die. And God is making sure that there are sufficient numbers of you who survive all of this to be established in the earth, to make sure his word to his friend Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob come to pass. So I said, no, it wasn't you that sent me, but God. God had sent him ahead of them, and he has also made him a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Now, having laid that foundation, that backdrop, we're now going to move forward. So let us go now to verse 9, where we're going to continue. So here, Joseph now tells his brothers, we are told, that they should make haste and go up to his father and say to him, thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me and do not tarry. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, and your herds, and all that you have. And there will I nourish thee. Verse 11. For yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. And we see that this is where Joseph's message to his father ends, right? So when he spoke about thou and thy children and thy children's children, this wasn't a message to his brother. He told them, make haste and go up to my father, and you are going to say to him, this is what Joseph says. He knows that if they go and tell their father, come with us down to Egypt, he's not going to budge, and there's a reason for it. Now we're going to come to that a little later. But he knows his father is not going to enter Egypt. All right? He's not going to enter Egypt. So he says, you go tell my father that I, Joseph, said that this is the case. And not only that, you are going to dwell in the land of Goshen, and you will be near me, and your children and your flock and your children, your grandchildren, everybody will be okay. Notice by now, Joseph is talking about his father's grandchildren, because at this point, Joseph has 2 sons. So he knows that his father has at least 2 grandsons. Plus, his brothers may have started having children before he went down into Egypt. Because remember, by this time also, Reuben is about 59 years of age. Right? That's about the age of Reuben. And so Simeon would be about a year or 2 younger than him. And Levi would be at least a year or 2 younger than Simeon. And similar thing for Judah. He may have been a year or 2 younger than Levi. All right. And so we see that at this point they were having children. And so he said this. Now, notice I made a link here between verses 9 and 10 and verse 17. And the reason I have this here is that I want us also, as we are looking at or recreating the story or the events surrounding this time in history, I want us to be learning also how to read the Bible, how to make sense of it all, right? And one of the things we find is that this statement that is being made to Joseph's father here in verses 9 and 10 was not of his own doing, right? It's not of his own doing. It was because Pharaoh had told him what to do. So Pharaoh told him what to do. And so how we are understanding this is that sometimes when we are reading, that's why I said to you, when we are, what I have learned is that when we are reading the Bible, we must not read verse by verse. If we read verse by verse, we won't understand, because the writers were not writing in terms of verse by verse. The translators did the best they could, and in their translating it, they grouped the long scroll into what we call chapters and verses, but they didn't sit down and write verse 9 and say, hasty, go to my father, and then verse 10, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen. No, that wasn't there. It was just one long scroll with everything written in there. The translators, when they were translating this scroll, they did the division. as best as they could. So what I'm saying to you is that we need to not look at the Bible in terms of verses 9 and 10. Right? As I'm presenting it to you at this point, right? We can't just look at verse 9 and 10. Remember, the Bible was written in terms of themes or ideas, right? And so the idea here is that Joseph told his brothers to go and tell them that they would come, he would come and they'd settle them in Goshen, right? A big picture there, my summary of what is said here. Yes, but we find down in verse 17 that this is where the idea came from. It is Pharaoh that told Joseph, say to thy brethren, this do ye, lay your beast and go, get you up into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households and come unto me. Right? So it is Pharaoh, when he heard that Joseph's brethren were coming, it pleased him. And he knew what was happening, and he told Joseph, he said, Joseph, listen this now. You tell your father, right, that he can come. He's going to be my guest down here in Egypt. Now, when Joseph is sending the message, Joseph told his father, come unto me. I am governor, right? I am governor down here. I run things along with Pharaoh. So you come, you and your family, all of you come down. We're going to learn more about this. So I want us, as we are reading the Bible, not just to be reading the Bible as a means of academic activity, but I want us to be reading the Bible with an understanding of how the thing is structured, so we can see the flow. And he says, and there, which is in the land of Goshen, I will nourish thee. I'll take care of thee. All right. Let me see if I have. Right. So here, the text that is, the word that is used in the text is Binka, and it is translated to your son. Remember, I said when you see words like ending with I, like if we had seen Benny, that would be my son, right? Because that talks about the I, the me, the my. And then when we see like him, it is the pluralization of a word. And then when you see like the ka, that is your, all right? As I go along, when I come up on some others, I don't want to tell you things that aren't necessarily accurate, right? So I'll tell you them, I'll point them out to you. So here he's saying, your son, right? Now the root word from which you get things like the bin, B-I-N, a son, a young one, youth, those kinds of idea. The word that is used in the Hebrew, right? And it's transliterated to English as B-E-N, and it is pronounced Bane, right? And it means a son as a builder of a family name, right? One who has the power to carry on the lineage, right? That's what it is talking about. It's talking about the son. In the widest sense, right, of literally or figurative relationship, including grandson, subject, nation, quality, or condition, etc. Right? Like you would say like father or like brother, those kinds of things. We talk about the Bane, right? Bane. Now, so when we read in the Bible and it talks about your son and son's son and so on, they don't really talk necessarily about grandson. So when you hear about Jacob's sons, it is also encompassing his grandsons, right? And when it talks about his daughters, it will also talk not just about his daughter, but in some instances it is used to make a reference to daughters-in-law. All right, we came upon these kinds of things when we were doing our earlier study, when we came upon Lot and his daughters and what happened. And so we learned that Lot did not only have two daughters, it was only two daughters that were there with him. The others were married and had children. All right, and that's why Lot's wife looked back when she heard the screams of people in the city, and she knew that her grandchildren were among those being burnt up, and her heart as a mother and as a grandmother couldn't allow her to continue. She looked back. All right. So that is why she looked back. So here now he's telling him, this is me, your son, who come out of your loins. Go tell daddy that is me. This is no imagination. And he told him, God hath made me your son, Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me and don't delay. Tarry not. All right. And the word for tarry here used in the text is T-A-A-M-O-D, and it means delay. All right, delay. And the root word from which you get the idea of to stay, to be still, to hold firm, or to tarry, or so on, that word that is used in the Hebrew is transliterated to English as A-M-A-D, and it is pronounced hamad. Hamad, meaning to stand in various relations, right? Whether literally or figuratively, intransitively or transitively, right? It talks about remaining one place. So he's telling his father, don't stay where you are. Come to me in Egypt. All right? And there's a reason, as I said earlier, his father would not go. His father would not enter Egypt, and there is a reason for it, because his grandfather Abraham would have left them the promises and the prophecies from God that warned them about this land of Egypt, and he knew that there was going to come a time with the oppression, and so he would not go down there. But Joseph sent him the message and said, Daddy, you have to come to me. I am here. I will take care of you. This is not just asking you to come. I'm telling you, this is a part of God's plan. You come to me, and I've got somewhere prepared for you. Tell Daddy I say is to come, and he's going to go to Goshen. Remember, all of these lands, they would have known about already, right? Abraham would have told them about this land called Goshen in his traversing down into Egypt. Isaac knew about it also, because Abraham wasn't going to go anywhere without his Isaac. Right? They were there. And the Bible tells us that for 15 years of Jacob and Esau's life, they were with Abraham, moving up and down in the tents, traveling around. Right? So they knew, they had a sense of all of this land, right? Not just the land of Canaan. But Joseph knew his father would not want to go down there. And we're going to see where, when the time came, he really hesitated. Right? And that we will come across when we look at Genesis chapter 1. It tells us, right? But Genesis chapter 46, verse 1. Right? But that's not the time for this part of the discussion as yet. Let's continue. So he told them, you better come down here and carry everything you have, Daddy. Tell Daddy to carry everything, because here I will nourish thee. He's going to take care of him. And the word for nourish that is used in the text is K-I-L-K-A-L-T-I. Will I nourish, right? I remember when we see the words ending with like that I, it talks about the me, the I, the my. I will nourish you. I will take care of you, right? You'll be nourished by me. That's what he's telling him. I personally will take care of you. You need to come, Daddy. That's why he's telling his father here. And the root word from which we get the idea of to take care of, to carry, to feed, to provide, or to sustain, from that root word in Hebrew is transliterated in English as K-U-W-L. And it is pronounced yeah, that way, like it's really cool, you know? Yeah, that's how it is pronounced. Meaning properly, to keep in, hence to measure, figuratively, to maintain in various senses. So he's telling his father, I will maintain you, I will feed you, I will sustain you, I will take care of you, your grandchildren, your children, everything. I have prepared everything for you. Right? And this is why we said that Joseph did not go back. That's why I said this verse 7 to me is one of the most profound verses in the entire book of Genesis because it tells so much of a man's character, right? He did not go look for his father because he knew he had to prepare for his brothers that they could be sustained. And he wasn't going to take the chance of taking his eyes off Egypt for a minute, right? He would prepare and wait for them to come because God had shown him that this is going to happen, right? And so this is what is happening here. And so he told his father in the message, yet there are 5 years of famine. So we know that his brothers came to him in the second year of the famine. And we saw it here also when he told them, for in verse 6, for these 2 years has the famine been in the land. So we know that his brothers came in the second year of the famine, and they had 5 more years to go. And so based on this, we can calculate the age of Joseph. We can calculate, use it all, then know the age of Jacob at this particular time, and so on. And there are other verses that we will come upon that gives us ages, so we can calculate people's ages at different points. All right. Now also, he told him, lest you come to poverty. And the word that is used here in the text of for poverty is Tiwwares, and it is translated to come to poverty. And the root word from which you get come to poverty, to be poor, to be impoverished, or so on, the root word from which those come is transliterated from the Hebrew to English as Y-A-R-A-S-H, and it is pronounced Yarash, 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 with an emphasis on the R. So it's either Yarash or Yaresh, Yarash or Yaresh. Any one of those pronunciations talks about the very same word, right? And meaning. And it means to occupy by driving out previous tenants, right? So, meaning to occupy by driving out previous tenants and possession in their place. So in other words, it's saying that this famine will knock out every cent that you have ever accumulated over time. Right? You'll come to nothing. It will be driven out. You better come down to me. And then now he tells his brothers, he says, look, your eyes see it for yourself. And not only your eyes, if daddy don't believe you, Benjamin can tell him. Because the eyes of my brother Benjamin is witness that it is me. I am here. See me here standing in front of you. Right? It is me, Joseph, that is speaking with you. And you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt and of all that you have seen, and you shall haste and bring down my father here. Right? You're gonna go get him. And he fell upon. So this now is where the conversation here ends. And so we see it picks up now where he is here hugging his brothers, falling upon their necks and crying and weeping. Right? And of course, they weep on his neck also. So we understand that this part that we're talking about from verse 9 to 13 is not necessarily in order, because this part of him falling on their necks would have happened before when they came close to him. Right? They came close to him when he said, come, and they were shocked out of their wits. Right? And how this part came, where this invitation was given, it is now because Pharaoh came in. How is that introduced? It is introduced to us after this verses 13 and 14 and 15 that tells about the emotions that were exposed, or expressed when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers. And then now verses 16 and 17 gives us a backdrop now of what Pharaoh said and how that now is what had influenced Joseph, because the Bible tells us in verse 16 that the fame thereof, of what happened, everybody heard, no, Joseph brother come, and by the time you know it, somebody had run into Pharaoh and said, Pharaoh, guess who is here? Zephnath Paneah's brothers from Hebrew brothers from Canaan, they are here, they are here, they are here. And you know, everybody learned about it here now. And the Bible tells us that it pleased Pharaoh well and his servants. And this now is where Pharaoh told Joseph, he gave Joseph instructions regarding his brothers and his family. All right, so this now is where Joseph told his brothers, this you are to do. Lay your beasts and get you up onto the land of Canaan. Let me just make sure I have everything that I wanted to talk about here. All right, so the word here for fame in verse 16 is, the word that is used here is Haqqol, and it is the news. So it's the news thereof was heard. And the root word from which you get things like news, proclamation, thundering, spark, and so on, that root word is transliterated to English as Qowl, and it is pronounced whole, meaning a sound, right? A voice or sound. So the sound of it, the news just spread all around, right? Like it could be a loud or bleating or crackling, a cry, the fame of it, the proclamation, you know, all of it, those words could be utilized here. So it all went out, the news of Joseph's brothers coming, all went out, and the people were happy, including Pharaoh. The Bible says it pleased them. And when it talks about pleased them, the root word or the word that is used in the text is yitab, translated to it pleased, and the root word from which you get the idea of being very pleased, to make sweet, thoroughly fine, or to trim, you know, those kinds of idea. The root word is transliterated to English as yatab, and it is pronounced yatav, meaning to make well, literally sound, or to make beautiful, or figuratively to make happy, to make successful, to make right. So we see that it says that Pharaoh was very happy, and not only was Pharaoh happy, but all his servants were very happy at the news that Joseph's brothers were there, right? Because of course Joseph was an important man. I know in society, when the king laughed, everybody laughed, even if they are not thinking that it's really funny, right? They laugh still. All right. Right. So where am I again? So let's go. You'll come to poverty. And then now he told his brothers, go. And we hear now that he's pleased. And Pharaoh, this is where now we are introduced to Pharaoh. This is where we are introduced to Pharaoh's speech, where it says, now go and tell your brothers that this is what they are to do. They are to get their things together, and they are to go up to Canaan at this time, or urgently. So let us continue in verse 18. And take your father and your households and come unto me. Right? So we see that this invitation was not just for for Jacob and his household to come down to Egypt. It was for them to come down to him, Pharaoh. And hear what he says, and I, Pharaoh, will give you the good of the land of Egypt. In other words, you'll get the best land in Egypt. This is where Joseph now knows that it is going to be Goshen. Because if Pharaoh had made mention of some other city, Joseph couldn't have taken them down to Goshen. because Pharaoh's word supersedes Joseph's word. All right. But Joseph had already known from going up and down in the land, as we had discussed or learned in earlier discussions. He knew that Goshen was there waiting. He saw it. And how did he see it? In his traversals going down to his father-in-law. All right, maybe taking his boys down and carrying them to go look for granddad. That land that they went, that was just right beside Goshen. So he saw the land. He knew Goshen was there. He knew how well it would be. He knew that it was well flourishing. It was well watered and good for cattle. Right? And so the Pharaoh now, we are seeing that the idea of Jacob coming down and getting the land was not originally, in my estimation, based on the idea, the fact that, as I said, the Bible is not written in verses. It is written in themes or ideas. That's the only way the Lord could compact everything to make all of this information be stored in a little book that we can, we can carry around with so much things that he has been doing. Right? He writes very succinctly, right? He summarizes things very well. And so here we see that Pharaoh now is telling him, I'll give you the good of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. Now thou art commanded, this do ye, take your wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. Also regard not your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. So he's telling him, look here, don't even anything you have to leave, just leave it and come, because you won't miss anything, right? You'll have the best of everything in the land of Egypt. Now notice here that I've put some numbers, right? We must always pay attention. Another thing here in reading the Bible is looking for how events are listed, right? This do ye, take wagon, one. Take wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father. So the one was take wagons, and one set of the wagons will be for your family. Other one for your father, and come, right? Now we're going to look and see if it is executed the way it is said here, right? And notice here also, I had put 3 asterisks here, because all of these, when we look at it, we must see if what was said is what was carried out. Go tell my father this. Did they go and say to their father, this is what Joseph said? Pharaoh said, go take the wagons out of Egypt. So he's instructing, let's look at it. So he tells him, this is what you are to do. Now thou art commanded. Who is he commanding? He's commanding Joseph. This you are to do. Take wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones, for your wives, and bring your father and come. He's commanding Joseph to command them. Go do this. This is the word of Pharaoh. So if they don't even believe Joseph, Pharaoh's word is what carries that. Look, you are going to be the guests of Pharaoh in Egypt. You're going to be taken care of, right? And he tells them, don't regard your stuff. You can leave them and come. And listen now what verse 21 says. Verse 21 says, and the children of Israel did so. Remember, we learned that when Joseph told his brothers, these 3 things you are to do. 1, you are to get together your stuff. 2, you're going to go up to your father, take food to your families. And 3, you are to bring Benjamin. And then the next thing we are told is they did so. But they did not move at all. It was the other verses that followed they did so that explained now and accounted for the journey, them getting the food, going away, coming across the money in their sacks in the inn, coming to their father, reporting just as Joseph had told them that they can't come back without Benjamin. And then we saw where events took place until they came back with Benjamin and stood before Joseph. So here we are to understand that is the same principle here when we are reading the Bible. When it tells us a command is given and they did so without anything else, we can expect now to see details of them doing so. Right? So here now is in the first part of verse 21, it tells us that the sons or the children of Israel did so. What did they do? They took the wagons, they went went home back to Canaan, they got their wives, they got their fathers, and they came back. But we are not seeing any of that happening here. Right? We are not seeing any of that happening here. So where is the details? The details are coming, because if we come to the second part of verse 21, it says, and Joseph gave them wagons. First part of what Pharaoh said. Where did these wagons come from? Land of Egypt. That's where they were. And he gave them according to the commandment of Pharaoh. So he said, Pharaoh commanded Joseph to tell his brothers. Joseph listened to the command of Pharaoh and gave them wagons and gave them provision for the way. Look at what it said. Lay your beasts, get food, go back to the land of Canaan. Right? So this is what we are told, and this is what I'm saying to you. We have to follow the theme. This is what they were told. Where was it carried out? This is important for us to learn, my brothers and sisters. Learn this today that I'm telling you. If you even have to write it down, write this down. Yes? If you this technique, if you will, that I'm telling you about, it is true not only for the book of Genesis. You can take it to the book of Acts. Yes, you can take it to any book in the Bible because it's the same writer wrote all of those books, condensing it. These principles that I'm teaching you, I'm trying to teach you weekly. You can apply it and it should stand, it should hold firm regardless of the book you are reading. And as God will permit, we're going to be increasing our Bible study sessions, right? And we're going to take books and we're going to go through them, Old Testament book, New Testament book. I'll ask you to just choose a book, right? And we just go through it and see if these principles hold. All right? So that's where we are going. We want to understand the Bible. So when we're here now, Joseph gave them the wagons just as Pharaoh had commanded, and he gave them provision for the way. To each of them, then it gives us a little detail here. To each of them, he gave each man changes of raiment, but Benjamin, he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. So in other words, his brothers, each of them, he may have given them, like 2 change of clothes, 2 new coat, and maybe a new shoes, sandal, and so on. But to Benjamin, he gave money. And he gave 5 change of raiment, right? Why? Because he loved his little brother. Long time he've not seen his little brother. How many years, right? 22 years, 22 to 23 years he hasn't seen his little brother. When he last saw him, his little brother was maybe about 4 years old. And now he's looking at him, this big man, beard up, and I tell him about his sons and daughters that he has, right? Can't believe him, little brother grew up in front, boy, look at this. And he gave him all of this, right? Because of the joy that was in his heart. But not only that, look at what he does for his father, right? So he loves his little brother and he gives him all of this. But for his father, verse 23, it says here, and to his father he sent after this manner. You have to separate out everything to tell you how he treated, what he did for his father, right? he sent after this manner 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, mean the best, and 10 she asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. By this time, unfortunately, it seemed like all his wives had died. So Leah would have died. We know for sure that Rachel had died. No account here for Bilhah or for Zilpah. Right? So we, based on the ages of the boys and so on, and the names of those who went down into Egypt, none of his wives were alive at this time. Right? None of them seemed, let me put it that way, because I can't say categorically, but it seems like none of his wives had survived up to this point. Because remember, when Rachel had Benjamin and died in childbirth, she was an old woman. All right, she would have been up in age, so to speak, and maybe that is kind of what helped to see her off, because she was just, I never expected to have a child at that age. Right? When Joseph came along, he was woo, and then years later, about 13 years later, Benjamin. Right? So, all right. So we see that more than likely none of them were around at that time, his wives. And this is what he said: 10 asses laden with good things of Egypt, that means food and everything, and then 10 more she asses laden with corn and bread, which is just, and meat, which was just for the journey. Right? Make sure his father had everything that he needed to come. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed. And he said unto them, see that he fall not out by the way. So we see that the first part of the verse here confirms 2, right? So this now is where 2 is going to pick up. So he told them, go, get your wagons, go for your families, and so on, and 2, bring your father. 1, we see where Joseph gave them the wagon, gave them the food for the way, sent them on their way. And it says here, he sent them away, just as what Pharaoh said. Go, get you into the land, send them away, let them go and come back. Joseph sent them away, right, for them to go and get their father and come back. And they departed, and he said unto them, see that you fall not out by the way. In other words, don't go arguing among yourselves and not talk about who never did and who did. I'm going to tell you, you didn't see him, and boy, I'm going to tell you shouldn't do. And Reuben, would be telling them, I told you not to do. And they must say, but him, and he suggested to sell him. So no, forget about that. Let bygones be bygones. That's water under the bridge. I already told you the intention you had was to hurt me. But, and so you set in motion things that brought me down here, but it was really God's plan to bring me down, right? And so I just want to encourage persons, remember again, however things go in life, we may not agree with it. Sometimes it causes us personal pain, but we are to always believe that it is God who is in control, right? It is God who is in control. So in 2 now, they depart to go to the land, right? And it says, this is a good example showing that we can't always interpret the scripture as if something spoken is always recorded in chronological order. Of course, as I said, what we were looking at earlier. So here in verse 24, we are told that Joseph sent his brothers on their journey, and they left, and then he spoke to them. If they had departed, when or how could he have spoken with them? It must be understood to mean that prior to them leaving, he told them not to go blaming each other for what had happened, right? And this is this part of the verse that is bringing that out. The Bible tells us here that they departed. So when they had gone, he said unto them, see, don't fall out by the way. It would be impossible for him to talk to them once they had gone. back in those days, as far as I know, unless somebody know differently, cell phone and WhatsApp wasn't invented at that time, right? And so it has to be understood that it was prior to them leaving that he told them. So we can't always look at things as having occurred in chronological order or as they are presented. Just as I showed you here in this example, that Joseph in verses 9 and 10, giving the invitation to his brothers to go get his father and come down to him in Egypt, was not Joseph's original idea. It all came from Pharaoh after he heard of Joseph's brothers coming to Egypt. He gave the instruction, and the Bible tells us very clearly that Joseph carried out the command of Pharaoh. Right? So that's what Joseph did. Joseph carried out the commands of Pharaoh and sent away his brothers. And the Bible tells us, and they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father. Again, if we go and look, we see where they were sent to go up to Canaan and to bring their father down to him. All right, see it here, verse 9. Told him to come down. Pharaoh repeated the same thing when he told them, go get your father and come back down here down to Egypt, here in verse 18. Right? So here now we are seeing where one, get the wagon, go to the land, take care of your family, bring your father down. Here now we are told on part of 2, right? 1, they departed. That's part of 2. Go. So this is one part of 2 being fulfilled. This is a third part. They went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan. That's exactly what they were told to do. Go back to the land of Canaan. We are seeing here, just as it was said, the children of Israel did so. Yes, they went up out of the land of Canaan, out of the land of Egypt into the land of Canaan, unto their father. Right? So this is the first part. Now, he hasn't come back with them to Egypt as yet. Right? So we can understand that the story continues. The events continue to unfold that will matriculate or will end up with this being fulfilled. They did what they were commanded, which is to take the wagons, go carry food, go get their families, get their father, come back to Egypt. All right, we haven't seen all of that, but we are told they did so. Now we are looking at the details surrounding them doing so. I hope again you understand this. One very important thing I didn't make mention of, I partly made mention of it, but not in this vein. For example, when Jesus said that the gospel should be preached in all the world and then the end come, right? Today we have it totally wrong, because if you understand where Jesus said something, the fulfillment of it is also in the Bible where this thing took place. And the book of Acts has it recorded, right? Some time ago when we had looked at Matthew 24, I brought out these things. So for those persons you are interested in prophecy, you want to know where we are, maybe you don't even remember some of those discussions we had, I'm going to invite you to go back to the YouTube channel and search for Matthew 24, right? That playlist, and go through it. It doesn't make sense for us to be groping around in darkness at this time when there are explanations for all of those scriptures. And I'm going to invite you, tell your pastors about it. Tell those who are teaching at your church, if they don't understand, you want to know, let them listen to the recordings too, right? Because this is not only about us here on this forum on a Sunday, right? My desire is that the whole church will hear this, because we need to be prepared for the coming of the Lord. And people believe that there are things to come, which are some things are gone long time, and they are recorded in scripture. Same principle here. And they did so. Joseph's brothers went and did so. And then afterward, it is spelled out. Here we are seeing something again. The children of Israel did so. And then afterward, we are being told how they did it. Same thing when Jesus told his disciples that the preaching of the gospel is going to go to all the world, and then shall the end come. It was talking not about the end of the world, but the end of Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. That means the preaching of the gospel had gone to all the then known world. You tell me one country in this world now that the gospel hasn't gone to. So why Jesus don't come yet? Nothing to do with our time, right? Nothing to do with our time. Anyway, that's not what we are here for. We're here to talk about Genesis, but I just felt that I should make mention of that to you. If you want to understand the prophecies, at least some of them, because I don't touch all the prophecies, go to Genesis to look for Matthew 24. In there, we touch things on Daniel, all kinds of prophecies, right? So please go and look at it and share it. Invite your pastors, your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, everybody, go look and just tell them to give it a like, a thumbs up if they like it, right? All right, so let's continue. Verse 26. So they went up to Canaan unto their father. So they come to Canaan, come with the wagons. And now they told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive. So they come all excited, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. Notice I have the three asterisks here, right? Why? Why is this important that they told their father this? Joseph told them to tell their father, and you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen. And you shall haste and bring down my father here, because this is going to help to convince him that he must come to me down in Egypt. This is part of Joseph's strategy to convince his father that this is the time that he must enter into Egypt. Because what had been keeping him from Egypt all along, he is not going because of what his grandfather Abraham would have told him, and his father Isaac, right? So here now, Joseph is trying to get his father to do something that they had avoided doing for donkey's years, because these men were old men doing observing these things for so long. And here now, his son is trying to tell him to come down to Egypt. He's not going to want to come, even to see Joseph. And we're going to learn about that he hesitated even to go see Joseph. As much as he wanted to see Joseph, he wasn't going to go down there, right? Because he remembered what Abraham had said and what his father said Abraham had said, right? He wasn't going to go down there. Had no plans to go down there. So this now is where Joseph comes in and says, one of the things you're going to do when you go and see my father, just tell him of what you see down here. They went up, saw their father, and they told him what they see down there. Remember, theme. Something, instruction is given. Where was this instruction carried out? Because we are told that instruction was carried out. Right? Do this. And they did it. Where did they do it? This is one of the things I wanted to learn about reading the Bible, making sense of it, not verse by verse. You are told something, look for it. Read now and look for it. When you find it, go back over and read again. See how it ties in. Learn the flow of the scripture. So when they told him that now, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt, and Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. And the word that is used here for fainted is Y-A-P-A-G, and it is pronounced, well, it's translated to fainted. And the root word from which you get feeble, faint, weak-hearted, things like that, that word is, that root Hebrew word is transliterated to English as P-O-W-G, and it is pronounced oog, and that means to be sluggish, right? To be sluggish. So he couldn't believe. He was hard to be convinced then, right? His heart became sluggish. Huh? You boys don't play though. You can't come and make a joke like this. You can't, right? You can't understand that this is what took place. Why? Because he didn't believe them. His heart was hard to believe, slow to believe. And they told him all the words of Joseph too, right? They have to convince him, which he had said unto them. And when his father saw the wagon which Joseph had sent, the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob, their father, revived. Right? And the word for revived here in the text is Watethi, then revived. That's what it's translated as. And the root word from which you get the idea of to restore, to repair, to recover, to nourish up, and things like these, that root word from which you get those words being derived, that root word is transliterated to English as Chayah, and it is pronounced Haya, 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 meaning to live, to revive, right? Whether literally or figuratively or positively. So their father's spirit revived, because remember when they told him first, maybe he sat down in his chair and he says, "You boys don't play, don't joke about this. You can't make joke like this with an old man. Suppose you give me a heart attack." He wouldn't believe them. He told them, "Don't you come in here and lie to me. Don't you come build false hope." But when they said, "But Daddy, look at this, look at this." And because remember, even at this point, Benjamin is there and said, "Daddy, it's me, Benjamin, telling you. I saw Joseph. This is no joke. I saw him, Daddy. I couldn't believe my eyes." And he started to tell him, I said, "Daddy, he looks just like you." I'm just using my imagination here. And he maybe tell some feature of his dad, said, "Daddy, you say that no, or stay, I see when he's no staying, Daddy." Couldn't believe it. Right? And then he said, "Look here, Daddy." And he showed them, and they show him the wagons. I said, "How could we have got this?" Is him. And when he saw it, he said, "Wow, it's true. Joseph really alive?" And I said, "Yes, Daddy, Joseph alive." Their father now says, "It is enough. Man, there could be no greater news to me in this whole world. I'm glad to see all of you come back. I'm glad that Simeon is back, but this couldn't get any better. My son, Joseph, my son, is still alive." Then he says, "I will go and see him before I die." All right. So he now believes and he says, "I will go and see him before I die." And that brings us to the end of Genesis chapter 45. Next time, we're going to move on to Genesis chapter 46. All right. So we'll take it there for today. Are there any questions?